Hi, my name's Steve. I wanted to put on this video because I was concerned about the counselling practices and theories of Mr. Andrew Olson. I had some observations from a distance, and he was well recommended by leaders in a church group I was involved with. And I had been told that he'd had a lot of success. He'd helped a lot of people. Mr. Olson was at the time a registered psychologist, and so I I had one consultation whereby those first meetings you just lay out the facts, you tell the story. It's a beginning. That's all it is. And as it was, I happened within a few days to receive quite a difficult letter from a family member, and there were quite a few pages to it, and it was very, very hard terms. So hard that being in a fragile state at the time, I thought it was not healthy for me to continue to try and process. But what I did was I shared that with Mr. Olson, and I was basically trying to say, well, this is what somebody else thinks. And Mr. Olson, I felt, responded extremely harshly, and he appeared to be loaded with premises and a preconception of my circumstances. He did not interview the writer of the letter, nor did he discuss the content with me as such to find out what I thought or felt about those contents. He leapt into a diagnostic mode which basically crucified me. And that took some time to process until I was able to stand back and look at it objectively. And I felt that in actual fact, not only was he off the wall, but his presumption about certain issues in my life were incorrect, and I began to feel that he was diagnosing every situation in the same way. The way in which he resorted to those tools and the manipulations of his statements were really quite diabolical. So I began to talk to some other friends who were able to draw comparisons with the advice that they'd received, and when we considered it a bit more, we found that the outcomes from his counselling appeared to be an awful lot of separated and divorced people. So I looked around a bit more, and I studied a few things that he had published online, and it turns out that he seems to have a very a predilection for separating couples. He's stated in writing in one of his published documents that he thinks that if ministers in the church were doing their job properly, there would be more divorces. Now, personally, I think that's outrageous. And it seems to demonstrate a propensity for driving people apart, and almost becomes a preferred outcome. So I spent a lot of time talking to other people and investigating the outcomes from his counselling practice. Now, the reality is that people don't often admit to seeking the help of a psychologist, which is a shame, but it puts them in a particularly powerful position because people don't want to talk, don't want to admit, and they basically want to keep it private. So in that cloak of privacy and in the environment of the referral from the churches, in actual fact, he can actually do whatever he wants because nobody is standing over him in any sort of accountability role. And so what it appears is that over a period of some 20 years at least, he's been dishing out the same kind of counsel in various locations around the world. And I do have written statements from a number of ex-clients. The issue is not that those people separate, because I guess at times that might be appropriate. It's about the predisposition to a certain kind of counsel, and the fact that he does not listen and evaluate what the client is saying. I think it's totally inappropriate that he should dish out the kind of challenges and statements that he does, and a person could be well and truly forgiven for thinking that he was a manipulating narcissist. So that's a bit of my story.